And good afternoon to those of you who've already assembled. The early bird catches the Allen early. On a rather dull, cool, unpleasant class of an afternoon in Pittsburgh. What am I saying?
What did you just call it?
Pittsburgh. Very odd. Anyway, if you're out there, hi. Part 4 of the Hamlets saga, What a King Is This, is going to be rather interesting. And for which we, as usual, say thank you to our sponsor, the Allegheny Foundation, very generously funding this whole exercise for a whole year, which we're really delighted about. And you can watch all the previous ones on our YouTube channel, and with lots of other information as well. But you can watch all the webinars all the way back to April of last year. A whole year of webinars. I was going to say wonderful webinars, but modesty forbids. But do take a look. Hi, John Henry. Welcome. First one to wake up this morning, this afternoon. And James Kennedy does a description of Hamlet in 2 minutes as a comedy sketch. I could probably describe Hamlet in less than 1 minute, but I'm not going to, because I revere Shakespeare far too much to do that. Although Hamlet does, Shakespeare does lend himself to much mockery betimes. Hello, Grace. Sunny evening in Dublin. It's a miserable grey day here in Pittsburgh. Never mind. Hello, Shelley. It's gloomy in Mount Lebanon. One of the wonderful things about Pittsburgh is that when it's gloomy everywhere. You know, the cloud sort of sits over the city in like an unpleasant blanket. Hello, Debbie. But enough about the weather. It's too depressing. They did forecast snow for western Pennsylvania today. Somebody did. Obviously, they were an idiot because it hasn't, and I don't think it will. Had a fair bit of rain. But the joy is the temperatures are going up yet again. By Tuesday, we'll be basking in Mediterranean conditions. Yes, if you do have any questions, type them into the chat. We'll do our best to answer live, and if we fail to do that, send us an email, and I will always get back to you. Hello, Fitz. Welcome to you and to Margaret from Brookline. Yeah, gloomy here too. You see, it's all over the city. It's all over the city. Hello, Kay in Monroeville. Yes, Greensburg is Graysburg today. Well, greetings back to you from a Greyburg here. Hello, John. We all begin to gather. I'm going to confuse everybody in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to move all those books around in the bookshelf because I can't find anything. So I think they need to go back to alphabetical order while I can still remember the alphabet. Always, always, always feel free to make a donation, no matter how small. They're very, very welcome. And we really do appreciate it, and we really do need it. More of that anon. How are we doing? Nearly 2 o'clock, but we always keep people an extra couple of minutes. Hello, Helen. Oh, you pet. You sweetheart. You know I love you dearly. Never gloomy with a webinar. Hello, you okay? Nice evening in Haarlem in the Netherlands. Do you know, it's a funny thing. Anytime I visited, one occasion in Amsterdam, it was pouring rain for an entire long weekend. But usually the weather quite nice. Hence all the tulips, I suppose. Anyway, okay, nice that you're with us again. Another loyal supporter. Always there. Bless you. I'm bracing myself with coffee. We've a lot to get through today. Hello, Anne. Weather is good for the tulips, though. Yeah, it's glass half full, definitely. I saw a lovely meme on Facebook the other day. You know, the optimist glass half full, the pessimist glass half empty, the cat glass on the floor, which I thought, that's why I'll never have a cat. I can manage to throw things on the floor perfectly adequately myself.
You should get a cat.
No, not getting a cat. No, not getting a cat. No.
One is enough.
No, fur balls everywhere. I know, you know. Speaking of fur balls, I hope you've noticed I did have a haircut. Looking very fresh. Marginally younger. Hello, Marlene. Oh, good, I'm glad you made it too. We're very glad you made it. And Debbie. Am I familiar with Stephen Greenblatt's Hamlet in Purgatory? And if so, what is your opinion of it? No, I am not familiar with it. But if you send me an email about it, I may get familiar with it. There are so many books about Hamlet. Hello, Robert, viewing from Oakdale. Actually, I've just started reading the novel Hamlet about Shakespeare's son. In fact, I started it last night, so I can't tell you too much about it, except that it's about Hamlet, Shakespeare's son, and that the word Hamlet, or the name Hamlet and Hamlet, were totally interchangeable in the Elizabethan period. So whether he named Hamlet after the historical Hamlet, or the play Hamlet after his actual son, I really don't know. Hello, Pat from Oakland. Welcome. All the usual suspects tuning in. We're getting very good viewership on this particular series of talks, and also very good pickup on the YouTube channel as well. People checking back on it. In fact, very good pickup on an awful lot of the stuff that's on YouTube. So clearly the word is getting out, but I always say to you, please spread the word. Let people know we're here, because it is free. It isn't going to cost them anything, and they may enjoy it. You never know. Tell your friends you may enjoy it. Also tell your friends you may hate it. Unlikely, but you might. But if they hate it, at least they'll have me to complain to, not you. So do spread the word. It really does help. Right, we're now coming on 3 minutes past 2. Anybody who is late, pity them. And Amy, you made it. Well done. You see, just in time. Right, Hamlet in his own words. And this week, we're going to, let me start it by saying this. We often fall into the belief, the sort of often prescribed belief or suggested belief, that Hamlet is a play about indecisiveness, that the fatal flaw, the classic tragic fatal flaw in Hamlet is his inability to take action. Perfectly acceptable. But today I want to look at an alternate view of that, to look at the play slightly differently and look at the character slightly differently, because I believe that the evidence is there. And remember, everything I tell you may be wrong. It is purely my opinion, my thought process, and if you disagree with me, feel free to do so, even in writing. So I'm looking at this alternative view, that the tragedy is in fact, the tragedy of the play is in fact that the action Hamlet must take brings forth a downfall through no desire of his own. He has to behave in a fashion he does not wish to, does not expect, and that the cause of his eventual tragedy is not through his own fault, but through the circumstances that he's placed in. So the title of the play, the full title of the play, is The Tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. Fine. The problem is that after his father's death, Hamlet is still Prince of Denmark. And another problem of the play is that Hamlet would be quite happy to remain Prince of Denmark. He has no desire to become king, no wish to become king. He is studying at Wittenberg. We've already discussed that. He's 30 years of age. Therefore, he is what one might say a perennial student. He will stay in Wittenberg as long as he can. And after his father's funeral, he wants to get back to Wittenberg. He doesn't want to stay around. He's a philosopher. He thinks that way. He seems, you get the feeling that he almost dwells in the realm of thought. And he would be happy enough to continue that way. He has no apparent desire to be king, to rule, to be the boss, any of that. He says it himself. I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself king of infinite space. He does not have the ambition for kingship. Not at all overly ambitious, you might say, but he does go on after that statement, but that were it not that I have bad dreams. And those bad dreams have come from a visitation and a revelation, the apparent ghost of his father. Now, it's very interesting, theatrically speaking, that the ghost makes his first appearance not to Hamlet. And he could have. I mean, if the ghost is the ghost of Hamlet's father, why didn't he just appear to Hamlet? But he didn't. But he did appear to other more minor characters, 2 soldiers, and then to Hamlet's best friend, Horatio. Now, I think this is very important, that this sequence of ghostly appearances happen the way they do. Because if the ghost just appeared to Hamlet straight up, then he, and we as the audience, might be willing to pass it off as a figment of Hamlet's already fevered brain. And I mean, there are many discussions. Is the ghost real, or is it just an aspect of Hamlet's imaginings and guilt? But 2 soldiers and his friend can all testify to the truth of the ghost. They saw it before Hamlet saw it. So at least we have the truth, the veracity of its appearances, that it did actually appear. And I think there are 2 points on that. Shakespeare is saying to us, no, this is real, this is a ghost. And that the ghost has to prove its veracity, if you like, to Hamlet, because for a lot of the play, Hamlet isn't sure. In fact, it's Hamlet's friend Horatio who first raises the question of the authenticity of the ghost when he first sees the ghost, when he first addresses it.
What art thou that usurps this time of night? By heaven, I charge thee, speak! If thou hast any sound or use of voice, speak to me. If there be any good thing to be done, that may to thee do ease and grace to me, speak to me. If thou art privy to thy country's fate, which happily foreknowing may avoid, speak of it.
So the ghost definitely appears to Horatio. He sees it. He talks to it. The ghost does not talk back to Horatio. He asks him, speak to me, speak to me, speak to me. The ghost stays silent. He says, if there are any good things to be done, if you're privy to your country's fate, tell me. But he's not going to tell Horatio. And what we're getting here is the picture of the dead king wanting to talk to who should be the next king. But having established this veracity of the ghost, that it does exist, at least in appearance, we next see Horatio bring the news to Hamlet. And it is the word of Horatio that Hamlet takes. If Horatio says this, it must be true. It's rather like watching a king taking good counsel from a trusted advisor.
2 nights together these gentlemen had been thus encountered. A figure like your father, armed at point exactly, cap a pay goes slow and stately by them. Thrice he walked by their oppressed and fear-surprised eyes. This to me in dreadful secrecy impart they did, and I with them the 3rd night kept the watch, where, as they had delivered, both in time, form of the thing, each word made true and good, the apparition comes. I knew your father. These hands are not more like.
Now, as I think we mentioned last week, this point is really important because it's in this conversation, in this moment, that Shakespeare establishes the clear and absolute degree of trust that Hamlet feels for his friend. Horatio has said, I saw it. It looks the image of your father. And he takes Hamlet's hands in his own and says, these hands are not more like, this is your father's ghost. And Hamlet accepts it. Hamlet believes it. Indeed, throughout the play, Horatio is the only character that Hamlet places absolute trust in. The only character whose word is enough for Hamlet, from whom he does not seek proof or evidence or anything. If Horatio says it, it is true. And it's a very important relationship because it is the relationship between the leader and the advisor, the counselor and the boss. And it is also important that with this piece of information from the trusted advisor, it's really important to note that Hamlet, in this moment, makes a clear and precise decision to act. No prevarication, no question of doubt or misgiving concerning the challenge of facing the ghost. And let's face it, if you're told the ghost of your or recently deceased parent is in the next room, you would think twice, perhaps, about going in to have a look. Hamlet does not think twice. Hamlet is instantly decisive. He knows what must be done, and he will do it.
If it assume my noble father's person, I'll speak to it, though hell itself should gape and bid me hold my peace. So fare you well. Upon the platform twixt 11 and 12, I'll visit you. My father's spirit in arms. All is not well. I doubt some foul play. Would the night were come! Till then, sit still my soul. Foul deeds will rise, though all the earth overwhelm them to men's eyes.
Note straight away, I'll speak to it, though hell itself should gape. Upon the platform twixt 11 and 12, I'll meet you. There's no prevarication there. I don't care what it is. If hell itself is open, I'm going to go and talk to this. It's an immediate and absolute decision. And it's a very courageous choice. And he's eager for it. He's so certain that something is wrong that he spells it out to himself. Now remember, from the beginning of the play, he's known something was wrong. And it was the incest as far as he was concerned. The fact that no sooner was his father dead than his mother married his father's brother. That was wrong. It was morally wrong. It was incorrect. There was something wrong. And we've already had that inclination from one of the soldiers at the first apparition of the ghost. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. We know there is something wrong. Hamlet senses it too. If it is his father's ghost, then there is something seriously wrong. So this choice, this immediate choice to go and look at the ghost, almost creates a certainty in Hamlet's mind that something is wrong. And he explains that to us within that speech in 3 very short sentences. All is not well. I doubt some foul play. Now, remember, doubt in Shakespeare's time, in Elizabethan time, we've changed the meaning. I doubt something means I don't believe it. I doubt something then meant I do believe it. And then, would that night were come. He is eager. He wants to see it now. He wants to do it now. So there is this eagerness and this determination and this certainty of action, which goes completely against the idea that Hamlet is a man of inaction and is condemned to tragedy because of his inaction. Right away, act, deal with it. And when he faces the ghost, when he gets there, there's no lack of confidence, no prevaricating, no uncertainty of purpose. This thing looks like his father, it sounds like his father, it's a bit like if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. He checks the other possibilities, but deep down he knows this is his father.
Angels and ministers of grace defend us. Be thou a spirit of health or goblin damned, bring with thee airs from heaven or blasts from hell. Be thy intents wicked or charitable, thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee. I'll call thee Hamlet, king, father, royal Dane. Oh, answer me, let me not burst in ignorance, but tell why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death, have burst their cerements. What should we do?
Now let's examine that just for a moment. What does he say within that speech? Rather than look at it as a speech, look at it as a series of thoughts and questions, and mostly questions. He begins first with a prayer. He's looking at a ghost. Angels and ministers of grace defend us. We would all find an equivalent, no doubt, regardless of your religious affiliation or even your set of personal beliefs. We'd all find a prayer to say on facing the ghost of our dead parent. Angels and ministers of grace defend us. Then there is a challenge as to its true identity. So he puts forward other propositions. Be thou a spirit of health or goblin damned. Bring with the airs from heaven or blasts from hell. Be thy intents wicked or charitable. In other words, are you an angel or a devil? Are you here to bless me or to damn me? He wants to get that clear, just in case it's not his father, in case it is some other thing. So he puts those questions out there straight away. Are you good or are you bad? Ironically, on the question of to bless him or to damn him, ironically, before the play is done, the ghost will actually have done both to him, because what the ghost asks damns him to an appalling torment, but also gives him the blessing of vengeance, which in Elizabethan times, I suppose, and in present day too, vengeance is sometimes considered a virtue. Even though vengeance is mine alone, said the Lord. So, without pause, having put this question for you, are you good, are you bad, are you an angel or a devil? Hamlet makes a choice. He makes a decision on the spot. Thou comes in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee. I'll call thee Hamlet, because you look like him. I'll call thee Hamlet, king, father, royal Dane. So in other words, he has made a decision. Whatever you are, because you look, sound, feel like my father, I will accept that, and I will talk to you as if you were. I'll call thee king, father, royal Dane. And now, answer me. Tell me why you're here. Let me not burst in ignorance, but tell why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death, have burst their cerements. Why have you come back? It's the direct question. Why are you here? What the hell are you doing here, if you'll pardon the phrase? And then the ultimate question, what should we do? There must be, for such a visitation, there must be a purpose. So young Hamlet is quite clearly expecting an instruction. What should we do? Why are you here? You're here for some purpose. What is that purpose? What do you want us to do about it? This is not prevaricating. This is not done in fear. This is not done in uncertainty. This is Hamlet making a clear and precise decision. And we know the answer that the ghost will give him, and that particular answer will set the play in motion, and it will lead Hamlet in a direction he never dreamed of. The last thing that Hamlet might ever have expected is what will happen after the appearance of the ghost, because the ghost will tell him the truth of his father's death. The ghost will tell Hamlet that he was poisoned, that it was his brother that did it, that his brother usurped the throne and usurped his wife, that he was sent to death unshriven, and therefore not to hell, but to purgatory, until those crimes done in his days of life are purged away. So it wasn't only murdered, but he was murdered in a cruel sense, that his soul was impure when he was murdered. Now, all of these things were enormously significant to an Elizabethan audience. Remember, you're living in a time when there is religious turmoil all over Europe, when the growth of Protestantism has risen, where England itself has been under enormous religious conflict for nearly 100 years, where you had you had Henry VIII separating from Rome, his son Edward, educated as a Protestant, creating a Protestant England as opposed to a church in England, a church of England. You had Mary coming back to the throne and burning all the Protestants and restoring the Catholic faith. You had Elizabeth coming to the throne after her and restoring the Protestant faith and burning slightly less people. So you had a time of religious turmoil. And Hamlet's attitudes and Hamlet's behaviors would be very, very clear to the audience that was watching it. The direction that Hamlet has to go in, one of vengeance, is also something that the audience would understand, because most political solutions in Europe for several hundred years before have been solved by acts of vengeance. One king against another, one lord against another. And England had 200 or 300 years of basic civil war prior to the creation of this play. Now, there is still a possibility of doubt about the ghost. Hamlet doesn't completely buy into it, and it's something that Horatio has said to him. Horatio has said, this may not be your father. This may be some spirit sent to tempt you. There is that little tiny element of doubt, regardless of which Hamlet has been acting immediately on the evidence presented to him. But Horatio has been established in our minds through Shakespeare as the counselor, the one to ask the hard questions, a sort of loyal opposition, if you like, that whatever Hamlet says, Horatio will say, yes, but what if? And Horatio raises the possibility that the ghost may not be real. And it's a fair thing to raise, because there's an enormity going on here. And when an enormity is happening politically, it must be questioned. And Horatio is the one who does it. Horatio uses the phrase, oh, day and night, but this is wondrous strange. Now, he's not using the word strange just in the sense of peculiar, odd, but in the sense of being impossible, something to be cast away. The word stranger, King Lear uses it, and as a stranger to my heart, hold thee from this forever. Strange, make strange, be away, go away, be nothing. And so Horatio is putting forward that proposition that this may not be real. And Hamlet's response to that is very telling. He seems at this moment to cast away the perennial student that we talked about, the theorist, the philosopher, and take the mantle of action. He welcomes the possibility of action. He seems quite suddenly to understand that there is far more to the world than simple or indeed complex theory.
And therefore, as a stranger, give it welcome. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. The time is out of joint. Oh, cursed spite, that ever I was born to set it right.
Now, even though I separated those points, you can almost see a pun being done by Hamlet there. If Horatio is saying it is strange, therefore it is not what it appears, Hamlet immediately turns that word and says, and therefore as a stranger give it welcome. Let's bring it in. Let's investigate it, because there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. We are students, we study philosophy, we study theory, but suddenly something real happens that turns the whole thing on its head, or might. And then this wonderful moment, recognizing that the time is out of joint. Things are not right. What it always felt, something is wrong, something is incorrect. The time is out of joint. Not that the time is out of joint, but that the time is out of joint. And he is not, with that piece of knowledge, absolutely thrilled that it is his job to fix things. O cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right. But he knows he must. He's not walking away from it. He's not prevaricating. He's not saying, oh, I wonder who can fix this. He is saying, it's my job. It's my responsibility. If what the ghost says is true, I must do what the ghost asks for. I must enact vengeance. Do it, he must. And he takes on the responsibility. He's beginning to act like the true inheritor of his father and less like an academic theorist. He is not prevaricating. Now, he's going to talk it through, because the theorist can never go away. The philosopher can never go away. The philosopher must be suppressed, or possibly the philosopher must embrace the man of action. And throughout the play, he will consider and reconsider until he can be certain of his course. And we discussed that when we were talking about the soliloquies. And he also uses his intelligence to play a game. He must be certain of his actions, and in order to be certain of them, because there's always the doubt that Horatio has mentioned, that the ghost may not be what it seems, that doubt will not go away until he can prove beyond reasonable doubt that it's wrong. So how does he do that? He feigns madness. Now, why? Why that? When one has to be the hand of vengeance in a place of danger, one needs to hide. You don't go around proclaiming it. You have to find some way of hiding yourself. When you are Prince of Denmark in the royal palace of Denmark, it's not an easy task to hide. People sort of notice you. So you have to find a way to hide in plain sight. It's a wonderful phrase from some thriller novel I once read. But you must hide in plain sight. You're going to be there, you're going to be seen. So how do you not be noticed? Well, if you have a particularly intelligent mind, you work it out, and it's really quite simple. You pretend to be mad. You put on an antic disposition, as he says. And he's worked that one out right at the beginning. Once the ghost has gone away, he turns to his mates and says, whatever way I behave, ignore it. I'm going to put on an antique disposition. I'm going to behave mad. He knows that's the best disguise for himself. So that no matter what he says, people will think he's mad. No matter what he does, people will think he's mad. It's the best safety cloak, the cloak of invisibility, to hide in plain sight. So he makes that choice. Because it doesn't only have to convince the king, Claudius, and the queen, Mummy, but all the people around him. He's got to convince everybody. It's got to be a foolproof disguise. And especially the king's most trusted advisor and counselor, the Horatio, what Horatio is to Hamlet, Polonius is to the king. And Polonius is a very astute observer of behavior. He's also an idiot. No, not quite. Not quite. He just tends to get things wrong. He sticks his nose in sometimes far too far. Now, Shakespeare demonstrates this hiding in plain sight rather beautifully. Polonius comes upon Hamlet reading a book and asks the rather inane question, "What are you reading?" To which Hamlet says, "Words, words, words," which is a bit like saying a book. And then Hamlet engages in this utterly delightful wordplay, which is not only true, but is a perfect description of the world's view of Polonius himself, and which Polonius will think is mad.
Slanders, sir, for the satirical rogue says here that old men have gray beards, that their faces are wrinkled, their eyes purging thick amber and plum tree gum, and that they have a plentiful lack of wit, together with a most weak hams. All which, sir, though I most powerfully and potently believe, yet I hold it not honesty to have it thus set down. For yourself, sir, should be old as I am. If, like a crab, you could go backwards.
This is not simple game playing. This is a brilliant strategic mind laying down evidence of his own insanity to fool everybody. Because he is certain of only one person. He cannot trust Polonius or Claudius, can't quite trust the queen, he can't trust Ophelia, the daughter of Polonius. Who else is there? One person, Horatio. And he will tell him that, but also to a purpose. He will tell Horatio of how much he trusts him to a purpose. It's not just a simple compliment. Horatio has cast doubt on the honesty or the veracity of the ghost. Enough doubt that Hamlet himself was not absolutely certain. Hamlet needs to prove to himself that the ghost was indeed real and that its request, vengeance, was justified. Or it may just be a devil trying to trap him. He needs proof, but he also needs Horatio to see and agree to that proof.
Horatio, thou art, and as just a man, as ere my conversation coped withal. Nay, do not think I flatter. For what advancement may I hope from thee that no revenue hast, but thy good spirits, to feed and clothe thee? Give me that man that is not passion's slave, and I will wear him in my heart's core, aye, in my heart of heart, as I do thee. There is a play tonight before the king. One scene of it comes near the circumstances which I have told thee of my father's death. Observe mine uncle. If his occulted guilt do not itself unkennel in one speech, it is a damned ghost that we have seen, and my imaginations are as foul as Vulcan's stithy. Give him heedful note, for I mine eyes will rivet to his face, and after we will both our judgments join in censure of his seeming.
Now, it's important that Hamlet informs clearly Horatio, I trust you. And because I trust you, I value your opinion, even if it's different to mine. And because your opinion has been different to mine, I'm putting it to the test. And I'm putting this test for myself and for you. I want you to watch as well. I want you to determine whether Claudius is guilty by his actions. And if we agree, great. We will both, our judgments join in censure of his seeming. We will both join together and see whether we agree about the way Claudius behaves. But look closely at the whole speech. Observe my uncle. If his occulted guilt do not itself unkennel in one speech, it is a damned ghost that we have seen. In other words, you were right, it was a devil. If Claudius does not behave in an expected fashion on seeing a murder just like the one we think he committed, if he behaves quite naturally, then what we saw was a damned ghost, a spirit, an evil thing, a demon. And you were right. And my imaginations are as foul as Vulcan's city. So he's putting forward that proposition. Because I trust you, because I respect your opinion, I am putting it and my view and your view to the test, and let's see which one of us was right. This is very clever strategic thinking. This is not Hamlet just taking a punt on the possibility that the ghost was telling the truth. This is Hamlet saying to his friend, either you're right or I'm right. Let's find out. This is very clever thinking. And we will, both our judgments, join in censure of its meaning. A good leader, and we're talking art of war here, a good leader verifies the facts before taking action. A good leader trusts the advice of his lieutenants before taking action. This is Napoleonic, who was years later, let's be said. A good leader, like a good carpenter, measures twice before cutting once. And that is exactly what Hamlet is doing. Hamlet is using strategic thinking. He's working it out in great detail. He wants to be right, because if he is wrong, he is damning himself. He has got to be justified. And the best way to do that is to take the one person who he trusts, who did put forward a different proposition, and say, let's test it. And of course, Hamlet was right. It was the ghost. Claudius does react to the play, does give himself away, and Hamlet goes chasing after him. But Hamlet misses the opportunity to kill the king while he was praying. Misses that opportunity because he was strategically thinking, if I kill him now, he goes to heaven because he's in a state of grace. I want to kill him when he is not in a state of grace, and he will suffer just as my father suffered, in purgatory or hell. So he misses the opportunity of killing the king. He also inadvertently kills Polonius while he was spying. Oh, everything that could go wrong does go wrong. Hamlet has now got a certain course of action, and in the taking of it, it all goes wrong. And because of that, Hamlet is to be sent away. As Claudius so caringly puts it, for thine especial safety. Now, it may be well that Hamlet suspects the true purpose of this exile, but there's really very little he can do about it. The king has said, out you go, and out you go he must. The king is, after all, the king, and Hamlet is, after all, only the prince. So Hamlet must accept that exile. But it may also be true that Hamlet suspects the true purpose of the exile, and there is nothing he can do about it. But I do believe, and this is the important point, I actually do believe that he does give Claudius a warning, an implied threat, but masked well enough in his madness that he can get away with it. When he is asked by Claudius for the location of Polonius's body, Hamlet seems to make a joke of it. But he moves on in that joke from the corpse that is Polonius to the corpse that will be Claudius.
Not where he eats, but where he is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are A and M. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures else to fat us. And we fat ourselves for maggots. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. 2 dishes, but to 1 table.
That's the end. A man may fish of the worm that hath eat of a king, and eat of the fish that hath fed of that worm. Nothing but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar.
He even mentions the word king. And if Claudius were smart enough, he would get the point. He would see the implied threat, and maybe he does. Because on the journey into exile, Hamlet is rather conveniently captured by pirates. Nothing is easy in tragedy, and anything can happen at sea. But he also manages, he's sent into exile with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern as his fellow travelers, but also with messages to the King of England. And so Hamlet, very, very wisely, takes a look at the letters from the king that his friends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are carrying. And of course, they're not a pleasant read. And here we're going to change Hamlets, just for variety.
Up from my cabin, my sea gown scarfed about me, in the dark groped I to find out them, making so bold my fears, forgetting manners, to unseal their grand commission, where I found Horatio, royal knavery, an exact command, lauded with many several sorts of reasons, importing Denmark's health and England's too, that on the supervise, no leisure baited, no, not to stay the grinding of the axe, my head should be struck off.
Claudius is following the grand old Irish tradition, if you like, to be sure, to be sure. He sent Hamlet not just into exile, but to execution as well, even if the axe is blunt. He wants to be certain that Hamlet won't be coming back. Now, it may be argued, quite reasonably, that this is just a strong king doing what strong kings do, removing a potential threat to their throne. And it happens throughout history. You might say it's what kings do. I mean, from the dawn of history to the time of Good Queen Bess, which is Shakespeare's time, Shakespeare's audience understood that. And we still do. After all, when a leader is threatening us, our very existence, we tend to remove them. Osama bin Laden is a case in point, which is just the point. It's what presidents do as well. It's what leaders do. It's what James Bond does. And here is the moment when all of Hamlet's, albeit very late, training in thinking like a king comes to fruition. The realization that being a king, he must take action regardless. He has shown the courage of facing the ghost. He has shown intellect and transforming it into an apparent madness. He has shown a sense of responsibility for the vengeance he must carry out. He has shown mercy for his mother. And it all comes together. That sense of kingship all comes together in the next action that he describes to Horatio.
Being thus benetted round with villainies, I sat me down, devised a new commission, an earnest conjuration from the king, as England was his faithful tributary, that on the view and knowing of these contents, without debatement further, more or less, he should those bearers put to sudden death, not shriving time allowed.
So, Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, go to it.
Why, man, they did make love to this employment. They're not near my conscience. Their defeat does by their own insinuation grow.
But what a king is this?
They are not near my conscience. He does what a king would do, and Horatio recognizes that. Now, it is arguable that Horatio's comment, what a king is this, could be about Claudius and his duplicity, but I don't think so. I think in that moment, Horatio is recognizing what Hamlet has become, that Hamlet is now displaying kingship, that he is showing that once faced with an inevitable conclusion and inevitable evidence, he can take decisive action. He can send his college friends off to England to have their heads chopped off. He's proving himself that he is indeed a king and can act like one. On his return, and don't forget, on his return, he has the experience of Ophelia's funeral to contend with. You might think that Hamlet's gone soft. You know, the effect of the death of Ophelia, or that, you know, time has passed and all of that. You might think that Hamlet is losing his the impetus for the vengeance. For instance, he does not appear to be looking for Claudius in order to publicly denounce him and run him through with a rapier or remove his head with a blunt axe. Indeed, you might say that he seems to be fitting right back into the court. Claudius, on the other hand, being devious, has other plans and is working with Laertes to kill Hamlet legally in a rigged, friendly sporting duel. Claudius thinks like a king all the time, a devious, an unpleasant, a self-serving, self-seeking king, but a king. Okay, I've got to deal with this. How will I deal with it? I can't deal with it publicly. Let's go underhand. We go into the James Bond mode. But if we listen to Hamlet's response to Horatio's concern about the bout, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist it. We can hear Hamlet's plan and the timing of it, that there is a plan. We get sometimes confused by this being one of the most beautiful moments in all of Shakespeare's writing. But the timing of it is a recognition it will be when Providence provides.
You will lose this wager, my lord.
I do not think so. I shall win at the odds. But thou wouldst not think how ill all's here about my heart. But it is no matter.
Nay, good my lord.
It is but foolery.
If your mind dislike anything, obey it. I will forestall their hither coming and say you are not fit.
Not a whit. We defy augury. There's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Since no man of aught he leaves knows what is to leave betimes. Let be.
And yes, he is speaking about his own possible demise. But in this speech, I think the philosopher and the man of action have now coalesced. They've come together. And if you look at what he is, we defy augury. Don't do predictions. Don't make assumptions. What will be, que sera, sera. What will be, will be. There's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. So what's it going to be like for me? If it's now, it's not going to happen, not going to be in the future. If it is not in the future, it will be now. And if it be not now, it will come. It's going to happen, one way or another. Somebody's going to die. It could be me. The readiness is all. And that's the key phrase. I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever the consequence may be. I will take the action when the time comes. If it be not now, it will come. But I am ready. Since no man of aught he leaves knows what is to leave betimes. You don't know what's going to happen. It can be today, it can be tomorrow. Let it be. I'm ready when the moment comes. And so, as I say, the philosopher, the man of action have come together, have coalesced, and he knows, like the wise king he now is, that it is providence that always decides the outcome. All you can be is ready for it. I haven't given up But what will be, the readiness is all. And so we come to the famous final scene. And the final scene of Hamlet is just a remarkable creation. Shakespeare had moved on to a new level when he started to write this play, a whole new level. He's moving into a realm of political thinking that is quite astounding. And if memory serves, Julius Caesar was the play to follow this, which is all politics. But in that final scene, we have the meeting of the two of them, the lads, they do the bout, the poison of the cup, Gertrude drinks it, Laertes stabs Hamlet, Hamlet stabs Laertes, the king's to blame, Hamlet stabs the king, the fight is over. Claudius is dead, Gertrude is dead, Laertes is dead, and so, by the way, are Polonius, Ophelia, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern, and probably one or two other peripherals. Hamlet, who is now king apparent, will soon be dead. No getting away from this, no happy ending. But he will die a king, or at least like a king. And he will have the truth told, the unvarnished truth. It is essential to him that for posterity, people know what happened. And that's because you want to pay it forward. That's because, as a king, you want people to know what the true history was. And when Horatio, the ever-faithful Horatio, tries to join Hamlet in death, Hamlet will forbid it like a king. Horatio has a job to do, and King Hamlet will have it done. And like a king, Hamlet will also choose his own successor.
I am dead, Horatio. Wretched queen, adieu. You that look pale and tremble at this chance. Had I but time, oh, I could tell you. But let it be. Horatio, I am dead. Thou livest. Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied.
Never believe it. I am more an antique Roman than a Dane. Here's yet some liquor left.
As thought the man, give me the cup. Let go. By heaven, I'll have it. Oh, God, Horatio, what a wounded name. Things standing thus unknown shall live behind me. If thou didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity a while, and in this harsh world draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. Oh, I die, Horatio. The potent poison quite o'ercrows my spirit. I cannot live to hear the news from England, but I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. He has my dying voice. So tell him, with the occurrence, more and less, which I've solicited, the rest is silence.
Now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
And there you have it. Hamlet, in his last breath, is giving the orders of a king. You will live, you will tell my story, you will tell the truth. You will be the guidebook to the story of Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. Of course, the play is a journey of revenge. It is a play in which the essential action is constantly being delayed. But it is much more than that. To my mind, Shakespeare is describing the journey we all must take if we are to be effective in the challenge life gives us. And the journey is always one fraught with confusions, fraught with circumstance. That providence is what decides fate, if you like, what decides, coincidence, if you like, what decides or which decides what is going to happen. But it is that same journey, the journey to reject doubt, that when you do doubt something, to find a mechanism by which you can reject it. The journey to understand that theory and reality don't always match. The journey to recognize duplicity, to learn trust and to use it, to do what must be done, even if it's against our nature, and to discover that kingship that can lie within us all. Except me. I don't want to be king. Or do I? Anyway, there is the theory. If you have any comments, any questions, please let me have them. And if you haven't time to do it now, do send emails. I'm quite delighted to answer, as anybody who's sent me emails can testify. If you don't like the theory, remember it's just a theory. And if you do like the theory, do tell me, because it's quite encouraging to know that what you say does actually have some effect on you. Anyway, that's that. Next week, well, I'll come to next week in a second. I do want to say thank you to the Allegheny Foundation, who have supported very generously the whole webinars for the year. And I also want to say thank you to the Theatre Authority that allowed us to use Alec and Lamar and Ken as two Hamlets and a Horatio. And I want to say thank you to them for your wonderful readings. And it's so wonderful when we can get those readings on top of me droning on. So thank you to them. Thank you to everybody. Do please tell your friends that we're here every Friday. The more people, the better. And do tell your friends that they can check us out on YouTube as well. You can get any of the previous webinars. You just go to our YouTube channel, which you will find on a Picked Theatre website. You can dip into any of them. And the other thing, this is just coming up there. There are 2 more days for you to vote. Pittsburgh Magazine is having a Best of the Burg, and we have been nominated for Best Visual or Outdoor Theatre. Oh, sorry, Virtual or Outdoor Theatre. All theatre is visible. But we've been nominated for Best Virtual or Outdoor Theatre. And that's on the basis of the webinars and the radio dramas that we've done, and also last year's Bloomsday broadcast, which we will be doing again this year, bigger and better. Can't get enough of this. Thanks to all of you. Thank you, James. Thank you. So if you can, go to either our website or the Pittsburgh Magazine website and vote Picked as Best Virtual Theatre. It makes a big difference to us if you can do it. There's the thing there on the chat line, how you can vote, and please do. Your vote is much appreciated, as indeed are your donations. And as I said at the beginning, and as I say every week, doesn't matter how small it is, if you can donate something, please do. Every $5, every $10, every $25, every $2,500, they all matter. And we need all the help we can get because we have a big year planned. We're back on stage in November. We're planning a big season because it's our 25th. So any help you can give us really matters. Next week, arising out of Hamlet, and I must say this series of 4 programs on Hamlet has been really quite popular. I'm going to discuss a theme that occurs in many plays. Shakespeare uses it a lot. Other writers use it a lot. And it is the effect of ghosts. So we're going to look at ghosts in Shakespeare and other writers and the effect that they have on the... Oh, thank you, Grace, for the vote. Thank you. We're going to look at the effect that ghosts have within the context of the construction of a play. So that should be an interesting one. And we're going to be looking, I hope, at some American playwrights in the month of May. But in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Have a lovely weekend. I hope the weather improves in Pittsburgh. Don't forget to vote. Only 2 days left. And take good care of yourselves. Bye for now.